Hello, if you're out there, just now starting the bunker live, and I'm gonna try to answer a bunch of questions. I got a bunch of questions on one of the threads, so we'll see if we can get to those if I can find them. I I just now, so what? I'm having to go back to my Samsung tablet because there just hasn't been enough power. It is so gray outside. Haven't had any solar, so I'm running off my little. I have a little box that's called a Goal Zero Yeti 150 box. Hello, everybody. Say hi when you drop in. And so I charged it a little bit during the day, and then so I have enough power. It's running the internet. I charged the Samsung tab, so I can't use a laptop, but we're here. You need to go milk. I'm sorry, man. I have to plan it around whenever I'm going to have enough power. My phone is almost dead though, and I'm looking at it here. And I'm hold on just one second. I'm going to see if I can plug in my phone somehow, and maybe not. Anyways, I've been trying to get enough power. We haven't had any sun really. This is the brightest it's been, and it's pretty dingy gray out there. And so I got to save up enough power so I could do this stuff. And it's been a pretty interesting day. Hey, I ate a big old cake. I didn't eat the whole cake. I ate a piece, a slice. Technically, I put it in my calorie counter as 2 pieces of cake, but I don't know, like 520 calories, something like that. But it was delicious. My wife and my daughter made a beautiful cake for me for hitting 200 pounds today. 200.0 pounds. I was hoping it was going to be like 199. It's not my birthday, damn it! I don't celebrate birthdays. The cake was for me hitting 200 pounds. That's the funniest thing. I mean, I'm laughing, Scott, because I put on the post all. I'm doing a bit. Bill Cosby. I put on the post. I do not celebrate birthdays. Very clearly on everything I've written, I don't celebrate birthdays. But since I don't celebrate birthdays and I haven't for 20 some years, nobody's had to buy me a present. So because I hit 200 pounds from the high of 278, they baked me a cake, and you can send me presents. You have no other opportunity to send me presents. I don't celebrate any of your holy days, any of that stuff. So, since I don't celebrate any days, now's a good time to send me presents. And so the internet's like, well, happy birthday. It's not my damn birthday. Hope you guys know I'm not mad when I'm just going off, you know. So, and I got messages coming in. It's going to be really loud. Sorry. Don't know how to turn that off. So what was I saying before stupid happy birthday? Um, so anyways, my wife built me a cake. It was a delicious cake. It was fully caloric, sweet, chocolatey. They crumbled up, oh, ice cream via UPS. It'll be liquidy, but I will drink it. It was a delicious cake, but it was basically, so it was a yellow cake, and she had what are those called? A form cake pan form thing that forms it into certain shapes. It was beautiful. And so then they were like, hey Tammy, hey Alan, hey Brother Don, hey Richard King, hey everybody. And so we're going to get to questions and answers and talking about all that stuff. But this is a celebration. It's a celebration of life. So and then so they broke up M&Ms and they baked them in the cake, and then they put chocolate all over it, and then they put crushed up like exploded M&Ms all over the cake. All over the cake. That's my Bill Cosby impression. So anyway, celebrating that you are only 75% of the man that I used to be. I'm not sure. Maybe math could be right. And I'm not done yet. I'm not going by weight. I'm not measuring weight so much. I'm measuring weight, but I'm not paying any attention to it as far as my decision making. I'm going by body fat percentage. Thank you, David. Anyways, we're still here. Pandemic's still going on. Things waxing worse and worse as prophesied. I don't like this angle. I don't like feeling like I'm looking down at you people. So I'm going to try to put I've got a lot of books I've written. And I'm going to try to put some of the books I've written here so I can I want to raise up other people. I sound preachery. All right. Thank you for the congratulations. How's that? Is that better? Everybody feel better? That I'm not looking down? It was a bundt cake. That's what it is. It's like a form. There's like a form thing. But yeah, it's gone. It's gone. I only had that much. Because, you know, it's cut like a pizza pie kind of thing, but it's got a hole in the middle. I had that much. I got the first piece. And then I told everybody, have at it. Because that's all the cake I needed. And it probably, before today, I had fasted for 46 hours, and then I had a 4-hour eating window on whatever, days don't even matter. And then I had a 36-hour fast, and then this morning I had some protein stuff, and some pork and eggs and whatnot. And then I didn't eat for an hour or two, and then boom, cake that big. All right, so let's get talking about what's going on in the world, etc., etc. From my last video, I talked about a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and it seems like we're kind of heading in the worst case scenario. Again, for everybody who's brand new, I don't know. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. I don't talk about the virus that much because this stopped being about the virus a long time ago. The ultimate impact of all of this, despite the fact that people will die from the virus, are dying from the virus, it will be the impact that it has because of governmental, non-governmental, human, personal reactions to it. People acting wrongly, and even governments and officials. Man, I got to trim this thing up. Looked pretty good about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I see C-Dubs in the house. Greetings, Darren. Greetings, Pat. A lot of folks here. Great to have y'all here. But we're trending in the worst case scenario line, and that is that because of what's happening and because of what's likely to happen. So I'm not predicting anything. I'm an expert on a few things. I'm an expert on human behavior, and I'm an expert on how to do things without the modern electric power grid. So if it has to do with living like it was the 1800s, how to do stuff, I know how to do it. I've either done it, maybe not an expert at it, but I know enough that I've done it. And I also know how to look at human behavior and expectations. Most of that is because I've studied the Bible, but also studying human nature. And so I expect that very soon we're going to see some pretty more draconian type of actions, necessary or not. I'm not making a commentary on, including locking up of a lot of interstate travel. More states are going to lock down, and we're going to see some form of rationing, or most likely, if I was to guess, and it's total guess, I'm not predicting anything, your ability to just leave your house and go to the store whenever you want, even if there's not much there, is going to be curtailed. I would expect in the 70s, during the gas rationing, I was 9, but I remember it very well. I lived in Ohio, and we had, back then, all license plates, especially in Ohio, ended with a number. And if your number was even, you could buy gas on certain days. And if your number was odd, hello, Nancy, you could buy gas on the other days. So there was 3 days a week or whatever. It alternated every day. You couldn't just go get gas when you wanted to. And when you did go get gas, you waited in a very long line. That's probably going to something like that's going to happen with food, whether it's the number on your driver's license or the initial of your last name, or something is going to happen that's going to restrict your ability to just rush out and buy things. Of course, everything is probably going to be rationed. They've already started with most of the major items saying you can only get 1 or 2 per family. There may be even more strict rules coming in place. Let me tell you how this impacts you. when these rules, and I would say there's a 95% possibility we're going to see these rules very soon. Every state could be a little. Hello, Ludovica. Good to see you. These rules get put in place. Then, of course, some form of identification or some way of identifying you so that they know whether it's your day to buy or what things you're allowed to buy is probably going to be put in place. But here's the problem. At the same time that we're considering, uh, and they are considering limiting hay fever a little bit. I don't know if it's hay fever. You can see the redness right here. It's definitely an allergy. And I touch my face because it's very, very itchy. But I don't know, hay fever, I'm not sneezing and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sick. This has been going on probably about 6 months to a year. It comes and goes. I'm allergic to something, but I'm not. Hello, I already said hello, Ludovica's in quarantine, yep. So I'm trying to read comments and answer them, but at the same time continue my train of thought. So the problem with at the time that you are going to be limiting people's ability to buy things, what things are available, they're limited by nature. They're also going to be limited by how much you're allowed to buy. At the same time, you are pumping. My eyes should be fine, maybe a little glowy. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the lighting and everything else. They're not too bad. They're usually worse. They've been worse, but I'm extremely healthy right now, comparatively. So at the same time that we're going to be limiting people's ability to buy things and that sort of thing, when you're pumping money into the economy through $1 trillion bailouts, $750 billion bailouts, giving everybody $2,000, giving everybody a certain amount of money, this has happened all over the world throughout history, and plain people will be the winners in this situation and already are the winners. But what happens is when you have more and more and more dollars searching fewer and fewer and fewer goods, you not only have inflation or hyperinflation, but this is the beginning of the black market. There, mark my words, there is already a black market, and that black market is going to explode and increase. So there you have a combination of things, and I hope you can stick with me because this could get a little bit complicated. One thing I've said over the last few videos is that people are predictable. Human nature is predictable. We also know history. I am surrounded by history books, many, many, many history books. And if I can find it here, one of those, Rousseau and Revolution, Will and Ariel Durant, talking about the age of revolution. One of the things that happens when you limit goods and you increase the money supply is, hello Daniel, is that you create both, first of all, you're going to have lines. Lines are a way of life probably for the foreseeable future for those people who must, or because of the just-in-time system of delivery, see my just-in-time video, are going to be having to queue for food, supplies, whatever. And so what happens is whenever you limit supply or you have a limited supply and you increase the money supply, then you have more and more money chasing fewer and fewer goods. People have to wait in line. You have an increase in organized and unorganized crime, but you also have an increase in black market dealing of goods and services because people by nature reject the power of and authority of government to limit the supply or the price of products. People want something, as we've already seen. If they want it bad enough, they're willing to pay a lot of money for it. And so you're going to see a development of I look like Confederate Officer James Longstreet. Okay, I'll take it. Except Longstreet, don't get me started on Longstreet. I'm not a Longstreet fan, CW or Richard King. I'll get into that. So we have more and more money chasing fewer and fewer goods. We're going to see the development of black market. You're going to see an increase in government's desire to limit the black market, limit anybody, what they will call profiteering, stocking, hoarding, all these words. And so this is going to create an entire new cast of crime and more law enforcement needed to stomp out. This is a historical fact. Please, please, please just listen to me. This has happened wherever. there has been this type of situation. So 1917 and pre-1917 in Russia, the French Revolution, pre-American Revolution during the time of the Boston Tea Party, etc. There has been this desire by a centralized government to control through taxation or through some other form the price of goods. And during a shortage, however that shortage comes to happen, the very wrong thing to do is to pump a huge amount of printed money into the situation, because there'll be a lot of money chasing very, very few goods. That is a fact of life. This anybody who knows anything about world history knows that this is going to happen. And so I'm just telling you, we are no longer looking. I did a whole video called "The Thing Is Not the Thing" that explains to you that this stopped being about the coronavirus a long time ago. It is now no longer about the coronavirus, and it's no longer about quarantine and those type of things. Now it is about the reaction. The reaction is now the thing to be looking at. And the reaction is humans act like humans. Governments act like governments. It's predictable, and it's absolutely going to happen. And so we're looking at minimum 12 to 18 months, according to the government's own plans. We're going to see maybe a little bit of a lessening or a lightening of things as the temperatures get warmer going into summer, and perhaps even somewhat of a return, not to normal, but to like a return after 9/11. There was no return to normal. In fact, in this time there will not be a return to normal. But what will happen is that we're going to see this thing most likely reboot in the fall, and even worse, unless this thing mutates to the point where it just kills itself off. But governments in general do not like to let a good crisis go to waste. And so this one will probably not go to waste. And so what we're probably going to see going into the fall and the winter is a heavy restrictions on travel, heavy restrictions on purchasing, heavy restrictions on what you can buy, when you can buy it, what, and that could lead. And I'm not saying this is going to happen absolutely. There are other ideas that are bandied about, but some type of departure from currency, the currency that you're currently used to using. The reason why is because a lot of people have a lot of money in cash, and that becomes very difficult to control. And so forcing people to use a debit card or a chip or something with a chip in it, or even some type of implanted chip that allows them to control the money supply, is going to force even more dollars and even more gold, silver, valuable things into the black market. When you apply a force and you force things into the black market, so let's just say that you're not a criminal, you're not a selfish profiteer. You are merely a person who has always been suspicious. Maybe you lost a lot of money in 2008, and you got suspicious of the markets. And so let's say you took out, since 2008, $10,000 a year in cash and put it in your safe. So now you have a safe with 120,000 US dollars in it. And all of a sudden, because of the situation, this happens. First of all, there's a tightening down on when people can buy things and what they can buy. That's the first step. The second step is you limit how people buy things. And for the most part, by pumping tons and tons and tons of money into the economy, chasing fewer and fewer and fewer available goods, you create a glut on the money supply, and you make those dollars appear to be nearly worthless. Not just inflation, but anticipating this. If you are sitting with $120,000 of money that represents the hours and the minutes and the seconds of your life that you saved, that you put away for a rainy day, that you dealt honestly with, you paid taxes on it, whatever else, and you have this money, you are going to try to put that money into something that has value for you. Later on, Forbes, you need to probably go deal some mother's milk or whatever it is you're selling to stay on the streets. All right, and so you got more and more money, and so you have this $120,000 that you saved up, and now you want to put that into something that's going to be beneficial for you and your family. That you're not just going to lose it, or it's not just going to be declared unusable, and there you are. So inevitably, in every system like this, you end up with a massive black market developing, and it's already developing. And so that's what's happening. And then the response, you have the action, and then you have the response, and the response is going to be, how do we stop it? Well, first of all, the public shaming is already beginning. They've already taught people, they're training people how to disdain those idiots that went out and bought toilet paper. And it's through jokes and memes and all this, but it's a training session. And then and now we're seeing the righteous virtue signaling of people just upset over hoarders and stockpilers. And so for the people who just wisely prepared for the future of themselves and their families, who were not selfish in thinking about only themselves and only providing for themselves at the last minute, not caring about what happened to their family, but people that actually provided for their family in advance, like the Bible teaches, those people are now demonized as hoarders, stockpilers, whatever. And not only is there already people screaming that all these stockpiles be seized, but this has always been the case. Those people demonized, and then now you have the contrary forces of the market and human nature saying, I'm going to do what I can with what I've earned honestly to provide for my family. And you have people that are like, we will seize the means of production, or we're going to seize this, and this conflict is where we're kind of heading. Some people may think I've gone way off of the coronavirus discussion or what you should be doing. I just want you to know what I think, and so all of this pure speculation based on a thorough study and knowledge of history and human nature. All right, so I'm here to answer your questions. I have some questions, if I can keep my phone on long enough, that were sent to me in one of the last, pardon me, threads. And I will see if I can locate that. And then in the meantime, you can ask questions, throw questions into the question box there, and I'll answer your questions as they come up. So I got to find this. Pardon my hair. Ugh, it's a travesty. I do not approve. Hey, there's my cake. Look at that cake. That's my cake from today. I didn't eat the whole cake. So I got stung by a scorpion today. Robert, glad to see you signed in, not sending me messages while I'm online. Anyways, I need to go to some questions that I was asked in a thread. Here we go. I have been asked several times to do a bug out bag, go bag video. That's coming. I'm just gathering some items. And I also want to give a very good philosophy and idea about my concept of bugging out, or my opinion of bugging out. So that's coming. If I'll try to do it tomorrow. If not, it'll be this week, this coming week. Homestead Library, definitely going to do a video on that. I just have to do it. I have to get the books down. I've got them all. They're all right there, like within 15 feet of me. Most useful to have homestead hand tools in your experience. Very interested in stuff you need to use every day. I would definitely have a set of hand wood tools, wood working tools, including planes, saws, chisels especially. Just get a good set of chisels, a good set of different hand saws, and all of that. And that's definitely good to have. But mainly as far as working on the homestead, you need a T-post driver. You need a great post hole digger, preferably not wood handled or plastic or fiberglass handled. If you can get an old school metal heavy, you don't think you want a heavy one because they're heavy to lift up, but the heavier they are, the more they dig. And so and also it's a good workout. Have you attained your Eagles shirt for your role? I think you'd want to get it and put some use on it so it looks appropriate for the movie. I'll have to think about that. Okay, so hand tools, a good shovels, good picks, rock breaker, absolutely. You want an absolute great rock breaker. Fence tool. The tool I use the absolute most every day is a lineman's pliers, a good set of big lineman's pliers. I'm coming to your questions here in just a minute. I'm going to get through this. Um, Matthew Emmett Townsend said disposals without body bags. I have no idea what you're inferring. If you have a bunch of bodies in your freezer that you've been waiting for the stuff to hit the fan so you get rid of them, I don't have a solution for you. But if you had to, if there was a grid down situation, total systemic collapse, somebody dies of natural causes, you want to just use a shovel. I don't know. I don't know what all that means. Another one on bug out bags, so I'm going to get to that. Root cellar, ours is crazy humid. Well, right now in Texas particularly, it's very, very wet, and so root cellars are naturally going to be humid. You want them to be humid, about 70% humidity. They're not a real good place for storing dry goods. You can build a underground dry goods cellar by basically cementing the whole thing and making sure that you have enough airflow. But a root cellar generally is designed to be moist because you're keeping root vegetables and such in there, and you don't want them to dry out. But it is very, very, very wet here in Texas right now, Central Texas. Why is cheese found in the refrigerator section if it is shelf stable? That's a great question. That was a little bit from one of my earlier videos, and I said about what to buy, that cheese was shelf stable. It's not actually, I mean, I have to define some terms because I live a different life than you do. By shelf stable, what I mean is if I take cheese that's bought at the store in the refrigerator section and I put it in my root cellar, which is about 60 some degrees, it will store there for a good long time. What happens with modern, the kind of the inexpensive cheese, is that it is made with some expressed oils and stuff like that, and so it will separate. It's not indefinitely shelf stable. Really, really good quality cheeses, like we have a cheese dairy not too far from here called Belchusen. You buy that cheese, it's going to have a wax rind on it. You can put it in your root cellar in a cheese box so that mice don't get to it, and it's going to last years and years and years and years. I'm not saying that the stuff that they keep it in the refrigerator section so it'll look better, because if not, at a warmer temperature, the oil kind of expresses out of it, and so that doesn't mean it's gone bad. It's just, and it gets sharper and sharper and sharper. But I didn't. I probably misspoke a little bit. It's not actually shelf stable at higher temperatures. But we have a cheese, and I have a video I took today right after I got stung by a scorpion, of a cheese box that we have in our root cellar. It's a mesh box that locks on the top, and you can put cheese and things like that in it, and it stores it for a very long time. So what I'm saying is that your cheese doesn't need to be refrigerated if you're going to eat it in a reasonable amount of time, a couple of months or whatever. At high temperatures, 90 degrees in the summer, we keep it in the root cellar. All right. Thank you for that question. How to slaughter and butcher livestock in depth. I can't do that on a video, and YouTube won't let us do butchering videos very much. And so I'll talk a little bit about it. We were supposed to butcher last night and this morning. We were going to kill the pig last night. We were going to skin it and let it hang because it was supposed to be in the 30s this morning, but we got an inch and a half of rain. So much rain coming. How do you entertain yourself without TV and movies? There's a lot of stuff. Read books, read a lot of books, and then just sit around and talk. We sit around and talk a lot. Talking is really, really good. Back in the old days, you had a front parlor before you had TV and radio. Even before you had radio, there was a front parlor. Great book to read. I recommend it all the time. Is Jack Finney's book. The first one is, I think, Time After Time, and the second one is called Time and Again, or those could be, I always get those backwards. The second book, actually the first book, they spent a lot of time in this house, and it's like 1912, and that wasn't before radio, but a lot of people didn't have a radio. And so in 1912, you had a front parlor. Usually would have been some type of music instrument or something, but people just went around the room, and so you would do games, you would do charades, you would do a reading. People were. Let me stay right here. I'm gonna get a book. For those of you who don't know me, I have well-endowed library. And so you can usually ask me a book or ask me a topic and I can pull out a book. This one is a book, a treasury of the familiar. And basically what this is like things everybody would have known or should have known at a certain era in time. And so they would print books like this. This book is from the probably early 1900s. And so, and there's poems, there are speeches, Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls. These sayings, people, when I was young, people knew these sayings. If you said, these are the times that try men's souls, that's what we're in right now, right? People would have known that that was a Thomas Paine article, and they would have known something about it because they would have read it in here. The Tree of Liberty, uh, from Bertrand Barrere's speech in the Convention Nationale, 1792. A poem from Thomas More, "'Tis the Last Rose of Summer," Antony's oration over Caesar's body. And you could just go through this book. And so what would have happened is people sat in their front parlor and maybe Aunt May played on the piano or the minaret or whatever. And then it went to Uncle Joseph, and Uncle Joseph told some news that he had heard of the day. And then it went to Cousin Jethro, and Cousin Jethro perhaps did shadow puppets on the wall. And then it would come to you, and you'd say, I'm going to do some readings from the Treasury of the Familiar. And so the whole speech about Brutus, the blind man and the elephant, John G. Sachs, I've used this in teaching. Lincoln's farewell address, check it here, the creation, Genesis chapter 1. They just cut out a part and put it in here, and you're just going to read it. Perhaps you say, we're just going to read our way through the Treasury of the Familiar. And what happened was those people then had a general knowledge of everything that was available to know. It was possible to know literature, music. People were not specialized like they are today. So I commonly talk about the fact that people are specialists, and because of that, they're ignorant of almost everything other than the little thing that they know. And so this was a book that would make people more diverse. And so diverse in their knowledge, in their understanding. So John Henry Newman's speech, William Makepeace Thackeray, Sorrows of Werther. And if you made your way through this book at the time that it was written, upon Westminster Bridge, William Wordsworth, you would have a general knowledge of the familiar. And the familiar was things that come up in everyday conversation. This is social, what you would call social discourse, being educated in social discourse. If somebody made an allusion to Moby Dick, you would have known what they were talking about, and you could converse with them. If somebody made an allusion to a Robert Browning poem or Emily Dickinson poem, you would have a general idea. Not all of their work. People weren't experts. They weren't specialists to the point that they knew everything that Wordsworth wrote, but the major poems people would know. Nobody know. I mean, you may know Childish Gambino's album dropped today, and that's kind of the way things are. And so this kind of discourse encouraged people to speak in public, encouraged people to have opinions, but they were knowledgeable opinions, and people were more than willing to listen to somebody they disagreed with, even if because they wanted to learn something. So I think I answered that question. So let me back up here a little bit to the questions I missed. Cloyce says, other than a sneak attack, EMP, or something like that, what might cause us to lose electric power on the current crisis? I think I talked about this in the last video, but the reason that we could end up losing electrical power is because all the systems that are in play are intertwined. And specifically what we know is that a crisis involves people. So we're kind of moving into tornado periods. There's a million things that can happen, but right now, because of social distancing and quarantining, the people who have to work on systems, most of them are still at work. We haven't seen the big influx. We're 10, 11 days after Italy as far as our impact, and so any number of things can happen, including authorities shutting down the power or shutting down the internet in order to maintain control, riots and those type of things. I think it's very, very likely something like that could happen. Those things happen on a minor scale and a localized scale when nothing's wrong, when you're not losing a huge percent of the workforce. Something happens, people get scared, they get spooked, they decide to go home. They're not on hand. I read a very interesting article the other day that was from a military person, and it's the idea, and I talked about this 15 years ago, that in most situations we have always had somebody, a white knight, to come in from the outside. And so when Katrina happened, it happened in a very localized area. It took a little while to mobilize, but when it did, people were able to come in from all over the world and all over the country, and they were able to help that particular area. When a hurricane hits, 4 of them in one year hit Florida, it was devastating. A lot of bad stuff happened, but the rest of the world or the rest of the country was able to mobilize and get help. What we are always unprepared for is something that hits everything at once, that taxes every bit of the ability, and so we don't have a force to send in. Military people, National Guard people are just as susceptible to the virus as anybody else. And so you're going to see a depredation or a depletion of those forces, the places that they can be sent. As people get worried, please don't think that I'm a doom and gloomer. I'm answering a question. How could this happen? How could it happen? Is as things ramp up, if you have people that are reacting poorly, riots, and those type of things happening, then the collapse of other systems is not only possible, it's likely. Just because you don't have the people to run in and from outside to come and help, because it's hitting everywhere equally. And so, if you have a massive earthquake that hits Turkey and 100,000 people are dead, that's 100,000 dead people. But people rush in from outside to try to help and send money and all that. We don't have that much experience with worldwide calamities. We have some data that we can gather from world wars. We have some data we can gather from past pandemics, but all of those things really aren't that applicable when our entire foundation is built on a digital technicist foundation basis. So our foundation is technical. For example, if let's just look at an aircraft. For years and years and years, airplanes have not been around that long, but they were fly-by-wire. So you pulled a handle, an actual wire flipped an aileron or whatever you want to call it. I'm not a pilot. When we went to more electrical means, they would have duplication. So if something broke, then you still could fly it by wire. There's always been a problem when you bypass all of that duplication and you go totally with a technical plan. If multiple systems fail or a lot of things happen at once, the aircraft's not. And we saw this just recently with the whatever the aircraft was, the new one that they end up having to pull. And it was a digital problem. Basically, it was a technical problem. And we have a technical problem with our infrastructure. And the technical problem is we no longer have the ability to fly by wire. Everything is technical, and which means the systems are overlaid. They're all based on human and technical weaknesses, and those things can fray, and then you can have problems. All right, type your questions in. The more questions, the better. British sailors would put on plays to keep. We used to do that when we first moved out here to the land. The children would put on a show. That used to be quite common. When I was young, we lived in Maryland for a while. We lived on a cul-de-sac. We actually lived on a cul-de-sac in Ohio, or a circle. But when we lived in Maryland, we lived on a block, and there was a lot of military, government people, and so they would have these block parties, and the children would usually get together, and we would very quickly develop a play or some running joke or something to entertain people, and that was generally pretty normal. I even remember as young children sitting around playing games, playing cards. We didn't have the internet, ubiquitous 24/7 internet, something in your face all the time, pushing buttons. But these are the kind of books I pick up at stores, not just because I like the stuff that's in them to read, but you can find out a lot about real history. So if you read history books, you are subject to being hoodwinked because you're subject to biases. And if somebody's biased or somebody, for example, I have the whole series here, and I just held up one of the books, but Will and Ariel Durant, probably one of the best books of world series, 11 book series on world history, the age of Louis the 14th, that there's ever been written. But Will and Ariel Durant were practical atheists, and so you have the bias of that secular humanistic worldview. If you know how to read it, then there's no problem with that. But as a person who reads history, you have to understand what somebody's political or theological or moral, social biases are. When you can find out the truth is when people are not preaching their thing to you. So let me give you an example. If you go watch movies from the 1930s, there are things in the movie that anybody would lie about, just because that's what movies are. You're telling a story, and you're going to have makeup on, and you're dressed. People even today in movies are not dressed like we dress every day. So I'm saying that's a lie because somebody 100 years from now would say this is the way they dressed in the 2020s. Not really. But there are things in the movie that there's no reason to lie about, nor would they ever think about lying about. Watch the movie with, I think it was Clark Gable, 6 months or so ago, and in the movie, he's been accused of a murder, and he escapes into this woman's house, and he passes out. And she runs into the kitchen, and she pumps water from a hand pump in the kitchen. She gets water, and she splashes it on his face, and of course that always wakes you up in the movies. The thing they wouldn't lie about is that hand pump, because not only was there no reason to lie about it, they never would have thought about it. They would have just told the set designer, or they were actually using a real house and said, build a kitchen. And so there would be no reason for them to go, put a hand pump there. We want to make this look weird. You don't want to pull people out of the story. So the background, the stuff that's the setting is accurate. You go watch old I'm trying to think of the word, noir, murder stories, black and white from the 30s and the 40s. The way they hold a cigarette, the way that people smoke on the streets, the way that different things happen, that's not stuff you can lie about. That's stuff that just is a part of the story, but nobody's focused on it enough to go, we're going to change this to make it more Hollywood or whatever. And so there's a lot of stuff you can learn from novels. Reading novels, reading Hemingway. Hemingway's great because of the prose, and Hemingway's great because of his sparsity or scarcity of language. But he's also great is because there's things that he talks about that there's no reason that you would doctor that up. So you can learn a lot about interpersonal relationships between perhaps races, or like the way he would have talked to a bullfighter or something like that. And you can learn a lot in books from that. So when I watch a movie, I'm not watching this. I love the story and all that, but I'm also watching all the stuff. I watch baseboards and doorknobs and lights fixtures. I love Mad Men because of its accuracy. And so I got to get a drink. Hold on. And so you can learn a lot about what life was like. Likewise, even watching YouTube videos or movies today, you can find out a lot more about things by watching the background and all that kind of stuff that happens. Please put your questions and comments into the comment section. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, I want to take a moment to tell you, please subscribe to the channel, watch the videos, press like. There's a little bell icon when you subscribe that gives you notifications, and if you'll click on all, then you'll get all the notifications. Every time I either go live or I put up a video, they'll send you a notification, which is great. But also share. For some reason, I'm getting a tremendous amount of views and a tremendous amount of watch hours, which are very, very important. So people are watching more of the videos and they're watching in longer. They find them interesting, but people are not so much sharing as much, and that would be great. It would be great if more people knew the resources out there. I'm going to be doing this a lot. If you're on Facebook, go to YouTube, subscribe, comment, like, etc. If you're on YouTube, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/off grid. It's that easy. Just look up Michael Bunker or look up facebook.com/off grid. If you will follow me there, then you will be able to participate. I do these live on Facebook and then I move them over to YouTube. John Brenner said, wouldn't a cyber attack also potentially knock out, disable, hamper the grid? Yeah, cyber attack would. And generally, if somebody's plan is a cyber attack, then, this is the kind of situation at the time that you would want to do it. Hello, John. So there are a lot. It's hard for me to even discuss how many ways that the grid can go down in the current situation. There's a lot of ways, but most likely we could see it interrupted just because of the shallowness of resources, depletion of the ability for people to work on it, or something nefarious. There's a lot, you get into conspiracy theories. Everything is a conspiracy theory until it happens. But if I had sat down and told you, 6 months, a year ago, that we were going to have APCs on the streets and the government talking about being able to arrest and hold people without any constitutional rights or indefinitely, or you would have called that a conspiracy theory. So everything's a conspiracy theory until it actually starts happening. What we're really talking about is the likelihood of it happening. I think most intelligent, engaged people that I know, that I've talked to, that are ex-military, ex-government, or whatever, are expecting massive interruptions. And interruptions is a very broad term to mean that things are not going to be the way they've been your whole life. And not just, not, there's this meme, and I mean a meme in the social way, idea that all we're going to do is sit on our sofa. There's a meme out there where it's like, our forefathers had to fight. All you have to do is sit on the sofa, stay home. Very much propaganda era poster material, except and staying home is fine, but sitting on your sofa for 18 months is not going to happen. I would really like to spend some time talking about how unlikely most people's survival plans or ideas are. I'm going to do the go bag, bug out bag plan, because I want to tell people how unlikely it is, without pre-planning where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, who's going to be there, and all that, a bug out plan, how unlikely it is to be successful. I wrote a whole book about it with my friend Chris Awalt called Wick. I'm using it to support you right now. You are stacked on top of it. Wick, the Wick Omnibus, and it shows the difficulty of just grabbing some supplies, a backpack, and thinking that somehow you're just gonna, because of your wit. I mentioned in a previous video, I love the series Alone. It's really the only survival show that I've ever seen on TV that was legitimately a survival show, where they put 10 people scattered out. They can't have contact with each other, and you basically have to stay alone in the wilderness with 10 items for however long you can. Whoever stays the longest gets $500,000. I did apply to be in one of the seasons, but they didn't choose me, and I can understand why. But so if you watch that series, you'll understand these are all generally survival experts that they send out there. I would say 80% of them quit in the first 30 to 50 days from social problems, where they can't be alone, or they worry about their children, or everything that they've had 6 months to think about all of a sudden becomes critical, and they've got to go home and change a diaper or something. Then you have about 20%, more than half of those will either be medicaled out because they lose too much weight, they don't get enough food, or get injured or something like that. And then you'll have the last few that hang on, who have some skills, they're able to get some good calories, not empty calories. And then you have The guy who's lasted the longest that show is a guy named Zachary Fowler. He's got a YouTube channel called Makery and Mischief. Uh, it's a good channel. Most of it is gear oriented, and I'm not a gear oriented guy. But the whole point is, and I'm going to talk about this in probably the next video or the one after that, is the probability of even an expert just walking into the woods with a few tools and being able to survive very, very, even with a gun. Um, it's just not likely. I mean, those days when mountain men would just go into the mountains and survive, there was a different kind of person, but also a lot of them didn't survive either. To think you're going to do so in a heavily populated continent where a bunch of people have the same idea and the same Dunning-Kruger opinion of their own abilities is not, it's just not realistic. And so you have people who think they're going to go out and become marauders and they're going to rob and steal and they're going to take from other people. Those people will be gone very, very soon, especially in areas like Texas. I don't consider them. I don't think about them. You know, people ask me about that all the time. What about when the gangs come out to take your stuff? You'd have to cross 2.5, 3, 5 hours of very, very, very dangerous territory to even full of people with guns to even get to my place. And then to think that you're going to survive all that, and then you're going to attack. You're stupid enough to attack a hardened target. Those people are just aren't going to be around very long. And so, you know, there's. I'm not saying don't have a plan. Have a plan, but you want to have a plan of where you're going to go, who the people are there, what resources are there, is going to be expected of you, and all that. I'll get into that in the video. I don't want to spend too much time on it. They tell me an EMP will knock out unprotected electronics. Yeah, it's true. Um, I don't think EMP is on the menu. It's always something that could happen. I think we're more likely to see interruptions that are more ABC, Occam's razor, more likely just because people go home, they don't have enough workers, somebody hits a light pole, you have overload of usage because everybody's watching YouTube and trying to run their air conditioner in the summer, and you just don't have enough people to go out there and work on the lines. Power lines go down, tornadoes, and the interlocking system, the internet based, goes down and cascading power outages, and you just don't have the workers. What would happen if we had a massive weather event, earthquake event, something on the scale of, what was it we had, the hurricanes, you know, in the south that kind of cascaded, or if we lose 20% of our, or 50% or 100% of our oil capacity, refining capacity, another natural disaster. You're stacking disasters now. Fires, don't have enough people to go put out fires. Firemen, emergency workers are all subject to the virus. They're subject to quarantine. They're subject to everything else everybody else is subject to. So I think everybody kind of gets the point. Not trying to scare anybody, but we have to be realistic. And being realistic means that you have an opportunity to prepare, but you need to have to know what to expect. And I think people are, for the most part, expecting a vacation. You know, a couple of weeks on their sofa playing Parcheesi and watching Netflix. That's, to me, is an unrealistic. There's a confirmation bias there that is mind-numbing to me, to see people underreacting. We talked on the last video about it. Overreacting and underreacting has to do with the word acting and whether you're acting intelligently or not. All right, I'm here for your questions. I don't want to stay on here too long. I just wanted to have everybody an opportunity to ask questions. Always, whether on your YouTube or Facebook, type your questions into the comments. It's kind of frustrating when I ask people for questions. I know they're on here, and they don't ask questions on here. They don't ask questions on YouTube. And then I get private messages because they want me to answer the question just for them. And then I got to answer the same question 15 times because somebody just didn't want to ask the question in an open forum. I ate some chocolate depression cake recently made with vinegar. No eggs or milk. Not too bad. Yeah, it's kind of it's a known contradiction quite often that things that are sour or things that are like that acidic with sweet things can be quite tasty. Some of us find ourselves temporarily urban due to various circumstances. I have options to go to more sustainable locations, and I have a generally well thought out criteria to leave here and go. See more. What are your thoughts? I think as long as you have a well thought out plan and your plan is realistic, which is not only one way to get there, but several ways to get there, stopping points along the way if you need to, or if you need to hike, and a planned out system, I think that you're in good shape. You want to know where you're going. You want to know the resources that are there when you get there. You want to know the ground situation, the intelligence of where you're going, who's going to be there, what expectations are, and all that kind of stuff. Just showing up somewhere, not a good idea. Uh, doesn't mean that you won't be received or something like that, but not a great plan. Know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, have several ways to get there and resources to get there, and if you have to ditch a vehicle or something because of roadblocks or something, have a plan. Again, I recommend my book Wick Omnibus for people traveling over country after a systemic collapse. Last Pilgrims is pretty good on that too. Although it's 20 years later, Wick is more immediate with the collapse. All right, so I hope everybody's doing all right. Let me look and see if I can find out what time it is. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap things up. You still ask questions in the comments even after the video's over, and I'll get to them. Or go over to YouTube and put them on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, etc. It's very, very helpful. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.